a novel that swept the globe, selling over 10 million copies, with its film adaptation dominating the Oscars with 5 major awards. Why does The Silence of the Lambs pierce the deepest fears and desires of humanity with its somber tone? Let's step into Thomas Harris's psychological labyrinth to explore how this thriller masterpiece, under the guise of lambs, probes the soul's redemption and destruction. Chapter 1: Harris's Pen and the Undercurrents of an Era. Thomas Harris, born in 1940 in Mississippi, USA, transitioned from journalist to novelist through a winding path. His early years covering crime news provided a wealth of real cases, forming the foundation of his chilling fictional world. Black Sunday laid the groundwork, but it was 1981's Red Dragon that introduced Hannibal Lecter, an elegant yet terrifying cannibal. In 1988, The Silence of the Lambs propelled this character to iconic status in both literature and pop culture. How did Harris craft such a gripping figure? The answer lies in his insight into humanity's dark side and his sharp reflection of 1982's American society. The 1980s in America appeared prosperous, but was rife with undercurrents. Reagan's economic policies fueled consumerism, yet widened the wealth gap, while crime rates, especially serial killings, surged, sparking public fear. The rise of the FBI's behavioral science unit brought criminal psychology into focus, with figures like Ted Bundy's cunning and Edie Gein's depravity capturing attention. Harris delved into FBI archives, interviewed agents and psychologists, and wove real cases into his narrative, creating the contrasting villains Hannibal and Buffalo Bill. He once said, "Fear is the most primal human emotion. I'm merely excavating its roots." This keen observation of humanity and society turned the novel into a mirror of the era's anxieties. Harris's method deserves attention. He didn't rely solely on imagination but grounded his characters in meticulous research. For instance, he drew on FBI agent John Douglas's profiling techniques to shape Hannibal's insight and used Gein's human skin mask case to craft Bill's depravity. This blend of reality and fiction gave the novel literary depth while resonating with readers' psyches. He visited Baltimore's mental hospitals to depict Hannibal's cell, with details like the damp smell of stone walls and the cold touch of iron bars rooted in real experience. This immersive approach lent The Silence of the Lambs a documentary-like weight beyond its thriller roots. Harris's work also paid homage to literary traditions while innovating. Influenced by Edgar Allan Poe's Gothic horror and Dostoevsky's psychological depth, he blended both into a dark, profound narrative style. Hannibal's complex persona recalls Raskolnikov's moral struggles in Crime and Punishment, both teetering between reason and madness. Harris added dark humor, like Hannibal's playful manipulation of his cellmate Miggs, enriching the text's layers. This literary quality set The Silence of the Lambs apart from typical thrillers, drawing a broader readership. The 1980s pop culture also inspired Harris. The success of psychological thrillers like Taxi Driver prompted him to combine novelistic pacing with visual impact, laying the groundwork for the film's triumph. He consulted FBI agents on case details such as how profiling deduces motives from behavior, directly shaping Clarice's investigative methods. Harris also drew from American Psycho's critique of consumerism, linking Bill's depravity to society's obsession with perfect images, amplifying the novel's social critique. Chapter 2: The Cry of the Lambs and Interwoven Fates. The Silence of the Lambs centers on FBI trainee Clarice Starling. Tasked with consulting the imprisoned cannibal Hannibal Lecter, she seeks clues to catch serial killer Buffalo Bill. The novel unfolds in dual narratives, Clarice's psychological duel with Hannibal and Bill's hunt for women. Through nuanced prose, Harris interweaves their fates, exploring themes of fear, control, and redemption. Clarice, from a poor background with a small-town cop father and an absent mother, carries deep scars. At 10, living on her uncle's farm, she witnessed lambs slaughtered, their cries haunting her as a lasting trauma. Joining the FBI, she seeks redemption through justice, but faces suppression in a male-dominated institution. Harris portrays her struggles as a woman in the 1980s workplace, like being ignored by male colleagues at the training field or facing subtle bias from her boss, Jack Crawford. Crawford once told her, "You're excellent, Clarice, but this job isn't for the overly emotional," a mix of praise and gendered stereotype. Clarice's resilience and vulnerability coexist. She confesses to Hannibal, "Those lambs' cries, I thought saving them would quiet my mind." This revelation drives the plot and exposes her inner motivations. Hannibal Lecter is the novel's soul. A psychiatrist skilled in psychology, he revels in cannibalism, elegant, yet ruthless. Confined in Baltimore's mental hospital basement, he manipulates the world through words, wielding uncanny insight. In their first meeting, he dissects Clarice's background. You're a small-town girl, Clarice, in cheap shoes, with a fierce ambition to rise. This precision makes Hannibal both terrifying and charismatic, embodying humanity's contradictions. He admires Clarice's courage, even sending her a letter post-escape. I hope your lambs have stopped crying, a taunt laced with strange care. Buffalo Bill, real name James Gum, is an opposing extreme. He crafts a human skin suit to escape self-loathing through gender transformation. His traumatic childhood, abandoned by his mother and rejected by society, fuels his identity crisis. Harris writes, he didn't want to kill, he wanted to become someone else. Bill raises death's head moths in his basement, symbolizing his warped desire for metamorphosis. His targeting of heavier women reflects a twisted pursuit of perfect bodies. The actions drive the plot while offering a window into psychological analysis. Supporting characters enrich the story. Crawford, Clarice's mentor, supports her yet embodies the system's coldness, strained by his wife's illness. Victim Catherine Martin, a senator's daughter, symbolizes privilege yet becomes a helpless lamb in Bill's hands. Harris builds a complex web of relationships, reflecting power, gender, and class dynamics. This web extends to minor characters. Hospital director Dr. Chilton, outwardly authoritative, is outwitted by Hannibal's manipulations, exposing institutional arrogance. His dismissive attitude toward Clarice mirrors systemic sexism. Catherine's mother, a senator, embodies elite anxiety, her helplessness revealing that privilege can't shield against fear. Harris shows class divides, like Clarice's interactions with wary small-town residents, reflecting 1982's distrust of authority. Real cases, like FBI agent Marion Cross's 1982's investigations, echo Clarice's challenges with community distrust, grounding the character's fates in reality. Chapter 3. The Chessboard of Psychological Duels. The heart of The Silence of the Lambs lies in Clarice and Hannibal's psychological showdown. It's not just a chase but a clash of intellect and will. Harris's dialogue showcases their dance between trust and manipulation, forming a dangerous symbiosis. In their first meeting, Hannibal offers quid pro quo personal disclosures for clues about Bill. This exchange drives the plot and reveals the essence of psychological analysis. Hannibal peels back Clarice's psyche, forcing her to confront childhood trauma. He asks, "Have the lambs stopped crying, Clarice?" A question that targets her core fear and desire for redemption. Clarice responds coolly, extracting clues like Hannibal's hints about Bill's greed and transformation. Their dynamic mirrors real therapy sessions, akin to Carl Rogers' empathic listening, where trust is built through understanding. Clarice's sincerity earns Hannibal's respect, prompting him to reveal Bill seeks answers in himself. Harris's pacing shows their evolving bond, from hostility to mutual regard. Hannibal's manipulation is masterful, influencing others like inducing cellmate Miggs's suicide, showcasing his terrifying control. His insight stems from exploiting human weaknesses, analyzing Bill. He craves transformation but will never be satisfied. Bill's psyche, inspired by Freud's ego conflict, seeks to resolve gender identity through extreme acts rooted in childhood abandonment. His basement, filled with sewing machines and moth cocoons, amplifies his distorted psyche, per psychologist Robert Hare's studies on trauma-driven deviance. Real cases, like FBI agent Robert Ressler's interviews with killers, show manipulative tactics akin to Hannibal's. Harris applies game theory, with quid pro quo resembling the prisoner's dilemma, each testing the other's limits. Clarice uses Hannibal's narcissism to extract clues, like his mention of Bill's collecting habit, a deliberate bait. This mirrors FBI agent Patricia Kirby's real-world emotional rapport tactics. The duel reveals humanity's duality. Hannibal aids Clarice while indulging his control. Clarice seeks truth but exposes her vulnerability. Harris said, "True horror isn't gore but the mind's chess game." Chapter 4. The Power of Symbols and Metaphoric Webs. Harris masterfully uses symbols to give the story philosophical depth. Lambs and moths, recurring motifs, represent redemption and transformation. The lambs stem from Clarice's childhood memory of their slaughter, driving her pursuit of justice. Harris writes, "She dreamed of saving the lambs but woke to their screams." Lambs symbolize victims like Catherine and Clarice's fight against her powerlessness, echoing the biblical Lamb of God in John's Gospel. The death's head moth, named for its skull-like markings, represents Bill's conflicted desire for rebirth. He places cocoons in victims' throats, symbolizing his warped metamorphosis, with the moth's life cycle tearing itself from the cocoon mirroring his pain, per Jung's individuation. Hannibal's cell, dank stone walls thick with despair, symbolizes the psyche's dark abyss. Clarice's FBI badge represents order, contrasting Bill's human skin suit, a critique of gender norms akin to Judith Butler's theories. Her cheap handbag versus Hannibal's fine pen highlights class and power divides. Bill's cluttered basement mirrors his psychological chaos, while the FBI training field reflects Clarice's growth, per William James's environmental psychology. Time imagery, like Clarice's race against time, echoes psychology's urgency effect, revealing true selves under pressure. Chapter 5. Gender and Power as Social Mirrors. The Silence of the Lambs reflects 1980 seconds gender and power dynamics through Clarice's lens. As an FBI trainee, she faces systemic sexism, ignored in elevators or questioned in morgues. Crawford values her but limits her, warning against getting too close to Hannibal, blending advice with bias. In 1988, only 10% of FBI agents were women, per records, echoing Clarice's struggle, paralleled by Agent and Burgess's equality efforts. Hannibal wields power through intellect, a veiled elite, while Bill's violence objectifies women. Clarice grows by finding her voice, defeating Bill through courage, symbolizing resistance but not erasing her trauma. The 1980s feminist wave informs her arc, using vulnerability as strength, per Carol Gilligan's Ethics of Care. Chapter 6. The Artistry of Suspenseful Storytelling. Harris's narrative craft makes The Silence of the Lambs timeless. Using limited third-person perspectives, he alternates between Clarice, Hannibal, and Bill, sustaining suspense. Clarice's training monologues sweat-blurred her vision, but she gritted her teeth contrast Bill's twisted desires. Early dialogue-driven pacing, like Hannibal's cryptic "why not ask what I like to eat," builds tension, while later action, like Clarice's chase green night vision dots flickered, her heartbeat drowning footsteps grips readers. Psychological depth, inspired by Jung's shadow, shapes Hannibal's poetic menace, eyes like red lanterns in the dark. Harris's restrained yet vivid prose, like Clarice's sweaty fingers slipping on her folder, balances literary finesse with accessibility. Epilogue. The Echo of Lambs and Human Questions. The Silence of the Lambs is more than a thriller, it's a mirror of humanity. Through Clarice's redemption, Hannibal's control, and Bill's distortion, it probes fear, desire, and morality. Do the lambs ever stop crying? Harris suggests true redemption lies in facing fear. Clarice defeats Bill but carries her trauma. Hannibal escapes, taunting, "I hope your lambs have stopped crying." Harris writes, "Some doors once open, never close," hinting at endless self-discovery. Real cases, like Agent Kathleen Puck's profiling or Philip Zimbardo's prison experiment, echo the novel's themes. Lambs and Moths explore redemption and transformation. Clarice's fight shows women's resilience. Hannibal's complexity blurs morality, and Bill warns of unhealed wounds. Harris bridges literature, psychology, and social critique. Do you hear your own lamb's cries? Open the silence of the lambs to find your answers. Facing fear or societal pressure, this book reminds us, only by confronting darkness do we find light.